So this is Kim Conchi. I'm Chief Executive of Cornwall Chamber of Commerce. We're delighted to have this morning Ian Sutcliffe, who's a fairly new member of Cornwall Chamber. I've been inspired and really enjoyed Ian's company since we met last year. He was introduced to us by Ruth Gawthorpe from the Smart Working Revolution, who, of course, we've been working very actively with at Cornwall Chamber of Commerce and advocating throughout our membership. And I feel very fortunate that we had people like Ruth and Ian with their foresight, so that from a Cornwall Chamber of Commerce point of view, we were not completely unsettled by the sort of working from home and different ways of working that's now been forced upon us. Of course, we're all accelerating now into completely new ways of working, and I think that deep involvement we have with Ruth on the Smart Working Revolution and with Ian with some of the ways that he's been working and advocating over a number of years in industries which wouldn't initially strike you as one's ideal for working from home, have really helped to inspire us. So without further ado from me, Ian, there will be time for questions afterwards, whether that's to you or anything about how the Chamber's working with Valentis to go forward. But the floor is yours. Thank you very much for your time. Really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say about this quite intriguing title of The Art of Hustle. So the floor is all yours. Ian Sutcliffe of Valentis Advisory. Thank you very much for your time this morning, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Morning, everybody. Hope you're well. Welcome to the Art of Hustle session. So brought to you by Valentis Advisory on behalf of the Cornwall Chamber of Commerce. So as Kim has said, my name's Ian Sutcliffe. I'm based in Newquay. Usually I'm a business advisor specialising in helping businesses and helping people that run and own businesses to grow their business. My company, Valentis Advisory, also partners with the Smart Working Revolution, and I'm delighted to be part of the employers group for the Smart Towns and Villages initiative, for which I think Cornwall will be a hub. I'll be joined around 11, I think, by Ruth Gawthorpe, who's CEO of and founder of the Smart Working Revolution and the driving force behind the Smart Towns and Villages initiatives. And Ruth will share her thoughts and run through a couple of the slides that we have later on. Just depending on timing, hopefully the slides have been put in place at around 11 o'clock. So Ruth will be able to chip in then. But if not, we might just need to skip them and move along. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear what Ruth has to say. I suppose just a couple of housekeeping sessions. So we're aiming for the session to last about an hour. Hopefully we won't run over, but if we do and you need to drop off, obviously feel free to do so. Happy to take questions throughout the presentation. We've got about five different sections, so feel free to send the questions through on the chat. I will pick those up and answer those as we go. We're going to hold a couple of polls, so actually 3 polls throughout the session, so hopefully that will help engage you rather than just listening to me waffle on. And finally, the session will be recorded and we'll distribute the key slides after the event, so you don't need to take full notes. Now, I do have appalling internet where I am, I'm afraid. So what I propose to do is to turn my video off, which will hopefully make sure that you can hear me effectively, and I'll switch it back on at the end. But at least you know what I look like. You've hopefully seen the eyes, the whites of my eyes. So I'll turn that off now, and we'll get going. So a little bit about me, a little picture of me there. So yeah, I'm Ian Sutcliffe. I am a business advisor, a coach and investor. My business provides support, as we've said, to organisations in helping them grow, to create effective growth strategies. And in my long-term market, which is insurance and financial services, then we also can provide access to markets, but that's largely not relevant for you guys. But what we do help organisations with is looking for alternative ways to develop their business, to identify new opportunities that their traditional markets wouldn't normally offer. And really, that's the focus of this session, The Art of Hustle. Just a little bit more about me. I know we've all got tales of struggles throughout lockdown, but I, I'm afraid, have been locked down with 4 teenagers, which have been both a joy and a strain in equal measure. Three of the 4 are triplets, and they were all due to sit their GCSEs. So, of course, they've lost all sense of purpose during the last 3 months or so, because their GCSEs will just be scored using their existing mock grades and really their effort that some of them have put in over the last few months. So I won't dwell on the next slide, just a little bit about what we do. So strategic planning, business growth support. We provide opportunity for non-exec directorships and a whole range of other leadership coaching and mentoring services. Most of our client base is in the insurance and risk management space, but as I have a base down in Newquay, then we're building our client base down in Cornwall as well. So the agenda, what is the art of hustle really? I'm going to cover a little bit about the world has just changed. I think we've heard that term pretty regularly. The art of hustle, what is it and how to excel at it? So we'll look a little bit about some of the things that you can do to drive change in the opportunities that present themselves to your businesses. Building, maintaining and leveraging your network. So we've all got personal and business networks. Are we actively making sure that we build those, that we update them, that we manage them? We'll talk a little bit about the things that we can do there. And collaborating. So, you know, quite a lot of us in the past may have worked in splendid isolation and had a great deal of success, but actually going forward, collaborating will be key. So, you know, we will all have lost something through the COVID-19 pandemic. And working with others who may have something you haven't, or you may have something they don't have, will be key. And then tracking and managing your opportunities. So making sure you understand the opportunities that you have, the potential value, prioritizing them, making sure you know, how do we get those opportunities over the line, I think is really the focus for that. So the world has just changed. So there's been impact on everybody, and we'll, you know, we'd cover this just in terms of business, but also personal circumstances, and things have changed for all of us. So COVID-19 has arrived, and that brings with it a whole range of impositions, everything from not being able to see friends and family, all the way through to quite serious illness, and in some respects, the loss of loved ones. So it's been a really, really difficult challenge for everybody. Within that, and the imposition really on business is probably lockdown. So lockdown has been imposed. Some organisations have been able to thrive. But on the whole, and we'll cover this in a little bit more detail, on the whole, most businesses have been negatively impacted. And what we need to do is establish how we can draw some opportunity from that. We've obviously been unable to live and work as usual, but we will hopefully have found some other ways to do both of those, and some of which will be positive changes. We'll have seen a downturn in usual income streams and a change to our existing markets. And on the whole, when we look at those, most of those are negative impacts. But it's important to think about the opportunity. So we do need to think differently. Using Apple's term, think different. If we continue to do what we've been doing through these circumstances and into the future, it's likely for most of us that there'll be some negative impact. So let's think differently about what we have to offer our clients and our customer base and the community. How can we work with others to do things differently, to offer more? Whilst lockdown has been imposed, I think lots of people have talked about there being a greater sense of community and supporting each other better. When we're busy in our lives, how many times do we sort of stand across the driveway and talk to our neighbours? Probably less so than we've done in the last 2 or 3 months. There's been a huge move to online and video communication, both for business and personally. So we'll all have done the Zoom calls with family and friends, and we'll all have probably held meetings with video communication. Obviously, Zoom is not the only one. We're on a different one right now. But I think, we've seen in business an increase from something like 3 million users of those, regular users of those tools, to about 26 million regular users. So huge increase. We've also seen a downturn, as we've talked about, in usual income streams, but new opportunities present themselves. As with changes in existing markets, opportunity to collaborate in new ways is always there. So we do need to recognise the impact, but we should also be looking at the opportunity. So our first poll. This is my first time doing one of these polls. So these are some renowned examples of change, success and failure. Now, some of them are successes or failures just in the rough and tumble of business, but one in particular needed to change because of a circumstance almost as critical as COVID-19. And so we're going to try and run this poll. So what I'd like you to do is to tell me, and if you could all get involved in this, that would be fantastic, but did BlackBerry succeed or fail? I think we've got an immediate response there. Same with Apple. So 100% for both of those. Victorinox. Now, you may not have heard of Victorinox. I'll give you a clue. They used to make the Swiss Army knife, or they still do make the Swiss Army knife. Now, actually, they've had some change on BlackBerry. So did they succeed or fail? So 100% on Victorinox. Very good, very good. Blockbuster, succeed or fail? Bit of a split, but largely failed. Okay, so I love this stuff. I love the stories behind change. I'll give you a little bit of background on each of these. So BlackBerry, did they succeed or fail? I think we're overwhelmingly saying that they failed. I think it's fair to say they were an incredible success for quite a significant period. I used to love using BlackBerry. So when we moved from the standard mobile phone to email, I thought BlackBerry was fantastic. I used to hate Apple for email. And in fact, it's still not quite as good as BlackBerry used to be, I think. But overwhelmingly, they developed the smartphones too late. They thought it was all about email, whilst Apple were developing iPhone and the App Store. So I think in this context, my view is they failed to change at the right time. Apple, did they succeed or fail? Well, again, it's a little bit of a tale of two halves. Apple came onto the scene with a fantastic new name and logo, and they challenged Microsoft. But actually, they were quite unsuccessful to the point where their founder, Steve Jobs, was fired. But of course, he came back and he changed the world. So creating things like the App Store, transforming the music industry with the iPod, and then the smartphone and apps, just transformed pretty much everything we do. So Victorinox, we've got there, succeeded. So I think there is a success story there. They were always successful with the Swiss Army knife, but their COVID-19 was 9/11. 9/11 happened to their business, and effectively overnight, travelers could no longer carry pocket knives, and therefore they lost pretty much all of their revenue. So they decided they had to do something different, which was to create travel luggage. So you will all have seen laptop bags and luggage, and they've been an incredible success as a consequence of that. Blockbuster video. So yeah, we've got 87.5% there failed. They were, again, an incredible success when videos were being rented out. But unfortunately, their CEO wanted to buy a little subscription company called Netflix, but the board blocked the CEO on the basis that 11% of their revenue came from late fees. And as a consequence, there is only one blockbuster left somewhere in, I think it might even be Canada or certainly North America. So yeah, excellent. I think we got that. That's fantastic. So there you go. I haven't used their logos as far as possible, but hopefully you recognise those organisations. Okay, so just looking at this, the world has just changed, and our challenge is to identify and grab the opportunities with both hands and create something new and different for the long-term success of our organisations and our people. So, my view is we should be looking at business as a long-term thing. There are always short-term opportunities, but our people can have long-term stability if we can develop opportunities for them that help with that. So the art of the hustle. So what is it and how to excel at it? So look at a few definitions. So the dictionary definition of hustle, to push roughly and jostle, and the noun, a state of great activity. I think it's a bit of both, really. I'm not advocating rough and tumble in business, but I think it's about actively pursuing opportunities. So jostling, identifying, but also acting upon those opportunities. It is definitely not the North American version, which is a fraud or a swindle. Absolutely not advocating anything like that. It is genuine. It's a genuine business process. But I love the entrepreneur's version. Hustling is the talent of working hard in moments when everybody else gives up. In my view, it's a lot more than working hard when everybody gives up, but it's a quote that gives you the essence of what it means. I often tell my teenagers there's no point in having talent if you don't work hard at it. And I think what we'll find is it is a new essential skill going forward, because our usual revenue streams will have been impacted in some form or other. So we will need to find others in different ways. And I'm not necessarily advocating to use a bit of an overused term at the moment, pivoting to something completely new at all. That might be an option, but equally there's an awful lot more between what we used to do and pivoting to something completely different. And so I'm advocating moving slightly away from what we've been doing in the past. So we're going to do another poll, some famous hustlers. So these are things said by some famous hustlers. So great things come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. Was it Deborah Meaden, the Dragon's Den dragon? Sir John Harvey Jones, who was the famous ICI boss? Abraham Lincoln, American president? Or was it Kim Conchi? Okay, so we've got one. I've got a bit of movement there. Okay. So most people think John Harvey Jones. We'll come back to the answers in a second. But yeah, a fair split, but 50% of you think John Harvey Jones. Okay, fab. Okay, the next statement. So work, that's how you get it. Was it Steve Jobs, founder and CEO of Apple? Anita Roddick, who was the founder of Body Shop? Or Gary Vaynerchuk? Who's heard of Gary Vaynerchuk? Anybody? Okay, so we've got one in so far. Split. There's a split there. Okay, fair split. So 40-40 Steve Jobs and Anita Roddick, and 27% there on Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, the third one. Major success is achieved by being in the right place at the right time and doing something about it. Really important bit there, doing something about it. So was it Ray Kroc? I won't tell you who Ray Kroc was. I want to, and I spelt his name wrong, so I apologise for that. Was it Oprah Winfrey? Or was it Bill Gates? founder of Microsoft. Okay. Fabulous. Okay. So one more poll before we move on. Does anybody know who Ray Kroc was? Let's see. So, was he the founder of Dell Computers? Was he the guy who made McDonald's a global phenomenon that it is today? Or was he CEO of Body Shop? Okay. So we've got a big leaning towards McDonald's. Okay, so we'll go back to the slides then. So there you go. So great things come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. That goes all the way back to Abraham Lincoln, who was the US president, 16th US president in the 1860s, sorry, not the 1960s. Gary Vaynerchuk, work, that's how you get it. I'm not sure if any of you come across him. He is a bit of a YouTube motivational phenomenon at the moment. He's worth a listen. He's very sweary. Well, he's American. He's very sweary. But his overriding message is there are no shortcuts to success. You have to work and you have to look for different ways to achieve success. And then Ray Kroc, he wasn't the founder of McDonald's, but he was the guy that took McDonald's from a single burger joint in California to what it is today. And actually, if you haven't seen it and you like films about sort of biographical films like that, The Founder is about Ray Kroc. It's a great film. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for taking part in that. So, there are a few different definitions we've looked at, the definitions of hustle there, but my view of hustle is creating and leveraging a network that enables you to identify opportunities that would not otherwise exist, ensuring that you work harder than everybody else to take advantage of those opportunities. So, how do you excel at it? We'll cover a couple of these in a bit more detail, but build and maintain your network. Talk to your colleagues and contacts, okay? Ask for referrals and refer others in turn. So I'll talk a little bit about that with Ruth Gawthorpe later on. There is absolutely no reason you should not ask anybody you know, providing you've got a good relationship with them, to refer you to somebody that might be able to help, and equally refer people to others that you might know. It's all about building your network and leveraging that network. Review your social media feeds regularly. Look for ideas and opportunities or areas you may add value. So when I come on to Smart Working Revolution, I'll just talk to you a little bit about that and how I've been able to build some relationships down here in Cornwall. Be bold and connect. Okay. Why not connect with people? We'll talk a little bit about this in protocol, but it is absolutely appropriate to connect with people in your sector, in your market. They might not want to connect with you. That's a different matter. We'll cover that in a short while. But the most important thing here is to take action and drive your opportunities forward. Go and collaborate. I dare you to collaborate with somebody. And we'll talk a little bit about who you could collaborate with and why it's important. Okay, so do we have, before we move on to the network, are there any questions anybody wants to ask just on the chat as we go through? Feel free to put those questions in, or we can pull them all off at the end. So none so far. Okay, so social networks. All right, in the olden days, I don't like to think I'm that old, but in the olden days, and I was working before we really used email, and certainly before social media, our network tended to be our stash of business cards or our Rolodex, to use an American phrase, or our order book. But technology has made it made this really very easy, providing that you put the time in to build and update and manage your network. Your network is not virtual, and it should largely consist of people and organizations you've met, that you've spoken to or that you know, people or companies who are your clients or customers, or you're linked to through the markets you operate in. It's not about connecting with anybody or any company. It's about using the technology to capture your network rather than keeping your business cards in a box. We've now got, we'll talk about some of these, but LinkedIn is the primary business-to-business platform, of course. There are others, and we'll touch on those. But it is about using the technology to capture your network and using its functionality to learn more about what others are doing and how you may be able to add value or leverage opportunity from it. As I just mentioned, LinkedIn is the business network of choice for business to business, but many businesses in Cornwall are B2C and will use Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, even dare we use TikTok, I don't know, and other platforms. But the same rules apply. This is about connecting with people. Facebook was designed initially to connect people at universities. So these networks, these platforms are all about connection. So we've talked a little bit there about LinkedIn. You will have noticed if you were registered up until yesterday lunchtime that I have attempted to connect with you on LinkedIn, and I've followed your organisations. Ordinarily, I would do that after an event like this, but I did it to make a point. Up until an hour ago, I think I had 3 people who accepted my connection, and we're now connected as a consequence. We wouldn't have been if I hadn't been presenting this event. And actually, I'll talk a little bit about how I eventually became open to delivering this event. But there are some others, though. We've mentioned Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat. There may be others that I'm not aware of. But it's really important to use these platforms effectively for yourself. Okay, so some examples of how you can use these networks, how you can connect. The starting point from my perspective is you're just using your phone contacts. Are you connected on your platform or platforms of choice with everybody in your phone contacts from a business perspective, largely, unless people can help you personally? Are you connected with all the colleagues across the businesses or organizations that you work for, or across the groups of organizations? Do you connect with new contacts as you go? Are there people that have been referred to you, people with opportunity that you can connect with? You should also follow companies. So I mentioned earlier that I've followed all the companies of those of you that were registered up until yesterday lunchtime, and I will do the same for those that have joined since. Are you following their group companies? Do you follow your clients' companies? Do you follow prospects, business prospects? Do you follow their organisations? Do you connect with those people? There are also sector associations. Cornwall Chamber of Commerce sits in that category for me, and there will be interest groups and forums. So, are you connected with all of those people? Can you see what they're doing? Can you see how they're working? All really, really important. So this, apologies, this looks a bit of a mess. On my slide builder, it worked a little bit better. But effectively, I apologise, bottom right logo hasn't come through in this. But effectively, 6 months ago, the only organisation I was connected with on here was UniHeads. They're a client of ours, and they provide free mental health awareness training to students and employees in the university sector. The logo you can't see is Champion Health. It's the main business behind UniHeads. So I worked with Champion Health and UniHeads. I saw, so Ruth Gawthorpe, Ruth may have joined us now, I'm not sure. Yet. So that one of my contacts in the insurance sector had posted doing some work with Ruth and the Smart Working Revolution. I noted that she was based in Cornwall, and I just sent a connection, a LinkedIn connection. Ruth accepted that connection, and I sent her a message to say, look, really interested in what you're doing. I might be able to help in some form. Do you mind if we have a call? We had a call, and then we met up following that. As a consequence, we've done a few different things together. So I've been able to help Ruth fill a vacancy for one of her clients. Ruth has introduced me to a whole range of people who are doing some things with that aren't shown on this slide. So you'll see that my connection in orange to Ruth has resulted in the green arrow of us both working together in a variety of ways. Ruth introduced me to Crowdfunder, who based in Newquay, and help organisations and individuals source funding. We're doing some work with Crowdfunder, and I've been able to introduce them to Champion Health and Uniheads. And Uniheads are now using Crowdfunder in order to secure funding to an health awareness training for free. So they have a live campaign going at the moment. Through that connection, we've been able to offer free mental health awareness training through the Cornwall Chamber. Sorry, I missed out there that Ruth also connected me to Kim at the Cornwall Chamber, and we've become members of the Cornwall Chamber and getting some great value from it in terms of meeting and liaising with other members. So really fantastic opportunity there. But through that connection, through our membership now, we've offered to all members the opportunity to access Champion Health's free mental health awareness training for employees. That's available, as I say, it's free. It's on the members' sites. If you want to take advantage of that, please feel free to do so. I joined a coffee morning week before last, actually, with the Chamber, and I connected with 3 or 4 different people. But actually, Mark Roberts from Conscious Creatives was on there. We've now connected, and we've begun to look at how we might be able to work together. Hi, sorry, somebody come on there.
Yes, it's me.
Hello, Ruth. How are you?
Very well.
Perfect timing. So I was just talking through, Ruth, how you and I connected, and looking at this slide, then all the connections that have taken place since then, just because I spotted that you were working with a contact of mine in the insurance sector, and that you were based in Cornwall. And so the orange lines are largely mine and your connections to these other organisations, and the green arrows show where we've begun to work together or develop opportunities. And I'm just showing that as a fantastic example. What I would call a hustle really is looking through your networks to identify opportunities to do things differently. And I spotted that you were working with Sam from Freedom Group, wasn't it? And we went from there. And now all of these opportunities, and many more actually, there were just too many to put onto this slide, are a great example of that.
Brilliant.
Okay, so I think the next slide is on for you. So that's perfect timing. So I mentioned, Ruth, that you were going to talk a little bit about the smart workforce, and then also move on to the Smart Towns and Villages initiative. And your 2 slides are here. Just timing. If I can hand over to you.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Ian?
Yes.
Can yeah, good. Okay.
Morning, Ruth. Kim here. How are you? All right?
I'm very well, thank you. And I can see Darren's on as well. It's lovely to catch up with all my friends in Cornwall. And thank you, Ian, for inviting me to your session.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
Ian and I met about was it about 9 months ago, something like that. It was we got together in crowdfunders' offices, actually, and we found that there was a lot of stuff that we can support one another with. And I think particularly at this time, as we're going through quite difficult stage in our businesses, it's even more important to try and connect with people and give one another a hand. And that's what we've been doing. And I'm just going to take you through the Smart Towns and Villages concept, which is, it's gathering speed now, so that's fantastic for Cornwall. But what Ian has said that he's prepared to do is to be one of the organisations who sits on the steering group for Smart Towns and Villages as we go through it. Sam White is another one who's she's really bitten around trying to look at how we can get more people into work in Cornwall who are furthest away from the workforce at the moment. But it also works the other way in that not only can we connect organisations from, say, the southeast of the country with people in Cornwall, but we can also connect organisations who are looking for maybe developers within other parts of the country. So I hope that all makes sense. I'm going to move to the next slide, I think, now, if that's okay, Ian, and we'll just have a look at the concept, and then I can take any questions on it.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. I might move on. Sorry, I clicked it twice. Sorry, what's going on? There we go.
Fastest finger first. Yeah. So if you think about it, in Cornwall, there's often a couple of a lot of customer service experts sitting around twiddling their thumbs at certain times of the year, particularly in the wintertime, although, of course, lots of them are doing it now at the moment because we're not able to open up hospitality and so on. But they've got fantastic customer service skills. And meanwhile, if you think about the wintertime and particularly the storm damage time within insurance that Ian and I have worked in, there's thousands of businesses ramping up for a surge in customer service, for example, with storm damage, and they say they can't get the staff. So we came up with this concept, which is Smart Towns and Villages. It's very inclusive because it will make sure that more people who are in those difficult categories, disabled, carers, people who live in remote parts of the country, but also people who are vulnerable and have long-term health conditions, particularly at the moment. This is really crucial. It means that they can be a part of UK PLC. And what we're looking at is more hub and remote working within our society. And that is supported by superfast broadband and 5G. And the thing that we're building at the moment is a skills portal. So we're going to be asking people and marketing, particularly in Cornwall, for people to load up their skills if they're interested in smarter ways of working. Eventually, we'll put this out across the whole of the UK, but we're interested in making Cornwall the smart capital of the country. Once we've got those skills onto the portal and we understand where people live and what they can do, then we're going to produce these wonderful talent heat maps, and we'll be able to pinpoint exactly who's got what skill. For example, if they're a developer, are they Java, are they Python, are they something else, and where they are based as well. And then we'll take those out to organisations like Saga, like Freedom, like the other 10 organisations that we've got interested in supporting this. And we'll say, these are the people that we've got. Do you want to tap into them? If we've got more people working remotely and in hubs, then it means that the rural towns are going to regenerate, and so we'll see more regeneration of the high street. But we'll also see that we're being a more inclusive society, and we're helping those people who do feel left out of UK PLC at the moment. So that's Smart Towns and Villages, and as I say, Ian, because we've connected and we've found that we're on the same page in so many ways, is going to be one of our steering group for our clients, which I'm very pleased about.
I'm delighted to be involved with that. Thank you, Ruth. And I think it's worth saying, we'll talk a little bit about collaboration in a minute, and this is what it's all about. But understanding what skills or resources or people or facilities that you have that might be of use, of value to other areas. And the one that stands out for me I think a mile with regard to you mentioned customer service advisors or people with customer service experience. So they don't need to have experience necessarily of talking on the phone, because the hospitality business down in Cornwall is fantastic, and those people have fantastic skills. But in my sector, insurance, I've spent many years trying to respond to floods and storms on behalf of insurance companies, and there just are not enough people with customer experience available to support those customers in their time of need. And their time of need tends to be in the winter, when in Cornwall, for example, there is much less demand for those skills, and therefore being able to put together organisations that have access to those resources with the organisations that need those resources is entirely different. And I think is really a big play and a big part of the initiative. I think. Kim, I'm not. You've asked. I think you made a point or asked a question that there's still not enough scientific analysis of evaluating networks, and I think really their effectiveness. I'm not sure whether you want to sort of just expand on that point so that I can answer it correctly. I think I tend to agree with what you're saying there, and I can talk about practical experience as well.
Well, I just think, Ian, that behavioural economics and social science and emotional intelligence in business have all been sort of evaluated over the last 30 years, and things are much easier to get implemented properly and for people to put in training programs and so on if there's some analysis of what the outcomes and impact is going to be. And I just feel we all know this about networks, and some of the things you've been talking about this morning as to how to increase the networks, almost for their own good, like you would in other spheres of life, accumulate more something or other, because of its generic goodness. And I just think there's not enough analysis done as to what measuring the impact of this very strong arm of business is concerned.
Absolutely right, and I think the only way you really see this is to experience the practical benefits. And have a little bit of a story. My last corporate role, so we established Valentis 2 years ago now. Prior to that, I was managing director of an insurance claims business, and I had employed my business partner now, Sean. He was helping me in areas of the market I didn't know particularly well. Anyway, to cut quite a long story short, I had a guy working for me who frankly was a nasty piece of work. He was just horrible, and I wasn't allowed to move him on. But so I had to work with him. But he decided that he wanted to get rid of a supplier. He didn't like the supplier, and actually he didn't have the guts to tell that supplier himself. And he was just toying with how he might get rid of them. And Sean stuck his hand up and said, "Look, I'll speak to them for you." And of course, this guy thought Sean was doing him a bit of a favour and thought he got out of doing his own dirty work. And Sean went off and talked to the supplier, and he let them down gently, explained what was happening. And I said to Sean after, why did you do that? I said, you didn't need to do that. That's not why you're engaged. And he said, Ian, it's all part of building the network. I've had a really pleasant conversation with him. He understands why he's no longer required, but I'll tell you what, we'll do something together in the future as a consequence of the way I've dealt with that. And 18 months later, we bumped into this chap at a conference, and we've done some bits of work together in our new guise. And that's what it's all about. It's, taking the opportunity to introduce yourself to new people or be referred to new people and building from there. And I think it's fair to say, I expected, and it's I expected to be doing a lot of business with organisations that I'd known and worked with a long time. But actually, over the last 2 years, I think 90% of the people and the companies that we work with, I didn't know before. They've come from introductions that have taken place since I left my corporate role. And that is all about the hustle. It's the introduction to, it's the discussion about how we can do things together differently. And so really, real practical experience tells me that this is the way forward. But you're right, Kim, there is no assessment of it, because the trouble, of course, is what you don't want is a network of people that you've just connected with, because we're not talking about being social media stalkers here and connecting with anybody and everybody. I talk to people who tell me they've got 10,000 LinkedIn connections. Well, I know for a fact they haven't met most of those. I think I've got 748, and I know that I've either met them or I've spoken to them in some format, and that's over a 30-year period, and that's a big enough network for me. So my view is that this is about people that we know, we've talked to, we've met, or we want to talk to. We could connect with people that we want to talk to. But we should then follow up and talk to them if they accept our connection. So I think you're right. So another question's just come through. And Ruth answered that actually. So will the hub be able to have subgroups of people in an area where we can get together to bid for larger contracts? Ruth answered that. Yes, it will. We can connect an employer with candidates or a group of candidates. So there you go. Okay. So I'll move on now. So collaborating. I'll go on the basis that no other questions that haven't come through just yet. So collaborating is key. We just talked a little bit about that now. So hopefully my message to you is coming through loud and clear, that it's about exploring opportunities with your network. That's the key part of it. Collaborating is simply working together with others on a project or initiative. It doesn't have to be about opening up your whole business to other people. You should take small steps in the first instance. It should be about just looking for small projects or initiatives that you're willing to work with somebody on. And when we look at the list of types of people that you can work with, just on the left-hand side here, so you can work with existing clients. Look to put together a package of services that could be different, could be in a different market, but really what you're delivering is at the core of your service. It could be working with suppliers to pull together a more rounded service proposition. Talking to your prospects. So, if you've been invited to tender, because you will continue to be invited to tender to things, or you will be invited to present your proposal to organizations, is talk to them about how you could do it differently rather than just pitching alongside everybody else that's pitching their same services. Talk to sector associations. So, this is really how this presentation came about, is talking to Kim about how we could help organizations think differently about sales. Because, to be honest, this is about sales. This is about looking for opportunities. It's about contacting, connecting with people. And it's about looking at how you could work with these organizations in the future. And also adjacent businesses. So businesses that might work in your market, but do something completely different. One that I mentioned there is competitors. And you might all be thinking, I'm not talking to my competitors about what I do. Well, why not? Because through COVID-19, they will have been impacted as you have been impacted. And actually, again, without opening up your entire business to them in terms of what you do, they might have some skills or resources or facilities that you don't have, and you might have some skills or resources or facilities that they don't have. And by putting the two together in a nicely packaged service, you could have something different, and you could both benefit from that. It might be a joint venture. You might end up creating a separate business together. We need to think about all these things. You shouldn't be afraid of talking to them, because you will find out what they're struggling with, what they're thriving with, and ultimately how you might be able to help each other. So just looking at some of the benefits there. So Collaborating will, without doubt, create new opportunities. The slide I showed you earlier are all the opportunities from connecting with Ruth and then being introduced to the Cornwall Chamber, to Crowdfunder, to others, are all new opportunities for me and my business. It gives you the opportunity to leverage other people's skills and share your skills with other people. Sharing resources, spreading the risk of doing something new is a fantastic reason for collaborating. It could give you access to new markets, without a doubt. And it's much easier to solve problems together than on your own. Just really thinking about some of those opportunities. I think on the call we've got people in the hospitality sector, we've got consultancy, we've got fund distribution. All of these apply to all of those sectors. Whether you're in the hospitality sector and you look to do deals with organisations that might be able to bring you new and different client bases. So, I think we've got Lusty Glaze Beach on the line. Absolutely love your beach and your facilities. But thinking about how you can connect with organisations in London who might do retreats for their senior management or client team. In terms of fund distribution, looking at different ways to help organisations grow using the funds that you have available to them. And from a consultancy perspective, I think certainly one of the organisations is in the legal consulting area. We work with, whilst we're consultants, having looked at your website, we don't do what you do. We work with 2 law firms and we know sort of 10 or 15 others in the insurance sector. So opportunities to talk about how we could do referrals, how we could introduce other organisations to you. These are all examples of collaborating. And actually they might not generate revenue in the first month or 3 months, but you will build long-term relationships. And actually, if you get nothing else from connecting with and collaborating with people, you will have a new relationship that you didn't otherwise have, even if nothing comes of it. So that's another reason to do that. Just conscious of time, so we're nearly there. Tracking and managing your opportunities is absolutely critical. So, as simple as keeping a list of them, that's the starting point. But actually understanding how many opportunities you've got on the go, because what you shouldn't do is just have one opportunity and just stick with that one opportunity, because 9 out of 10 might not go anywhere other than create a new connection. But if 1 in 10 goes somewhere, so logging I call these individual sales opportunities. So logging every single ISO. So what's the name of the person or the organisation that you're talking to or collaborating with? And what type of opportunity is it? So break your business down into sectors. So we split ours into advisory. So we're selling our time and expertise in certain markets. Mergers and acquisitions. So we help put businesses together, organisations together that might benefit from each other. And we have a widgets business, so selling services. We do risk management and support and organise. I mentioned earlier, Champion Health on well-being. So identify who you're talking to and what the opportunity is. Put a value on it. You might not know initially, so we put a £5,000 value on every opportunity we're talking to. The more we talk to them, the more we understand whether it's worth nothing or whether it's worth £100,000. But the more you talk and the further through the process you go, the more likely you are to be able to value that accurately. Establish yourself some targets. So look to have on the go 10 opportunities at any one go, or 100 opportunities. It depends on the size of your business. Target yourself to create those opportunities rather than waiting for your I'll tell you what, they will invite all your competitors to pitch for that work too. We just talked about this, adjust the value to reflect the progress. So whilst the values become more accurate as you go through the sales process, actually, the further down the line you go, so from initial conversation to formal meeting, to putting pricing forward, to presenting to their decision makers, you know, your value of £25,000 on that opportunity shouldn't be reflected as £25,000 at the time you first register it, but it should be the value of that should increase. So you should sort of, I don't know, value £5,000 as you get to meeting stage, £15,000 as you get to proposal stage, £20,000 as you get to presentation stage. And if it drops in as a one opportunity, you've reached an agreement, you've signed a contract, then the full value drops to the bottom line. I'll show you an example in a minute. But understanding the next steps and due date, you know, what is the next step? Is it to telephone somebody? Is it to meet with somebody? Is it to send some pricing? What is the next step, and when is it due to be delivered by? And capturing these in a really simple format is critical. There are a whole host out there, even from a spreadsheet, but here's one we created for our clients. We probably have about 10 strategic clients. That's about all we want. And they range from having revenues of £500,000 through £50 million, and not one of them had a sales pipeline or a tracker to test where they are. So we've created one whereby we can split it by our divisions. So I mentioned advisory, mergers and acquisitions, partnerships, or the widgets side of our business. And then we measure the sales stage, so opportunity. So that's, for example, we've identified an organisation in our sector that we think we could work with. We know we've got 43 of those in the moment. We've got a value, and it's adjusted to zero there because we haven't done anything about it so far. We've had a meeting and they're like what we talked about. We'll be moving it forward. Proposals, we've submitted some pricing. Presentation, we're about there. We're just ready to go over the line. And the ones that we've won, the ones that we've lost, so somebody else has won it, and those that actually turned out to be no opportunity. And guess what? Those 6 there is not lost time because we've now got relationships with people we didn't have relationships with before. All this is tracked against targets. I'll click on quickly because we're at 2 minutes to go. This is an example of how you record them. So you add a new opportunity. So you've got the service you're offering, the name of the organisation you're talking to, and the likely value. And as you move it through the sales process, you get a feel for which ones are the most likely to come off. So you can spend more time on those at presentation stage because actually you're one step away from winning it. And so you see how these opportunities move through the sales pipeline. This is one we created for our clients. I'm happy to let anybody on this call use it for 6 months free of charge just to see if it works for them. That's something I'll talk to Kim and the guys at the Cornwall Chamber, because I think it's really important that if we're going to look for hustle opportunities, we should make sure we track them and we should make sure we know where we are. So thank you. I think we've had a couple of guys having to leave the presentation, but if anybody has any other questions that they want to ask, please feel free to do so. I will switch my video back on now because I'm delighted that we managed to get through that without me being cut off, given the state of my my internet. So yeah, thank you very much. I hope that's been useful and interesting. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them. In fact, I'm not sure, Naomi, whether you want to put people's video on or not, or whether we'll just let any come through on the chat.
It's Kim here again. Just before Naomi pops in, Ian. Look, thank you very much indeed. I found that obviously, well, I found it very engaging and interesting. And it's just the sort of business input that I think we can really work with, and I think that Cornwall does very well. Some of the words you've used there, like collaboration, working together, are things I've been advocating for ages, and I think this COVID crisis has made us realise that when backs are against the wall, we in Cornwall can work to help each other in things like this, and those networks build up not only business relationships, but trust and opportunities in the future for all sorts of ways, as you've been advocating. So I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and so much of what you said chimes with the values of Cornwall Chamber of Commerce. And we've been working, really hard over the last 10, 12 weeks with a lot of distraught and sometimes teasy business people who are, really worried about what their future is going to be. I still think we've got some pain to come, particularly in hospitality, leisure, culture businesses, which are so important to us here in Cornwall. But there are changes in business behaviour and ways of doing things which are playing to Cornwall's strengths long term if we can get through the next few weeks. And the Chamber of Commerce team are here to help you, help anybody if there's any queries, questions about funding or well-being, whatever description that might. We're here to help and to work alongside you. So thank you very much. I'm going to nab off now, but if anybody wants to start asking more questions in, I know they're very happy. You're very happy to do so for a few minutes, and thank you once again. Most engaging.
Absolutely,
Look forward to hopefully seeing you in the flesh soon.
Yes, thank you, Kim. That's great. And if anybody wants to hang on, ask me any questions, or actually I'll put my contact details up now. Feel free. I'm open to have a conversation with anybody about anything. If they want to drop me an email or just give me a call, feel free to do so. I'll be delighted to talk to you. So thank you very much.